All right. Well, thank you for everyone who made it here today for our August Polymath Place Salon. I just want to warn you, in some of our past salons, we've gone way over the allotted time slot, and today I can't. Today I need to limit it to 90 minutes or less. Um, I would, why don't we start with an announcement I'd like to make, if that's okay with you guys? And I need to share my screen to do that, so bear with me while I find the screens I need. Wrong one. That's the wrong. No, wait, maybe. Here we go. Can you guys see something that says connect?
Yeah, I
Yes.
say it. Wait to the beach is what I see.
Yes. Okay. That's what I'm trying to show. Okay. So, and some of you are already aware this is happening, but in order to ensure we've got like really great people and enough people, I want to share it with the larger Polymath Place community as well. So Polymath Place is having its first in-person event. That's the big announcement. Yay! We can meet in the flesh if we want, for those who are able to make it. And I won't take up too much of your time. I just want to quickly go through like what it is in case anyone here might be interested. And also this is being recorded, so people who couldn't attend right now can also watch it later. So the name of the event is called Connect: Ideas and People. And it is going to be an event designed to foster personal growth, networking, rejuvenation. It's a time to connect with other fellow polymaths, to learn from one another, and to enjoy some immersive experiences in a really beautiful place. And I'll cover here in this slide deck as well, like the accommodations, activities, and stuff like that. And if you'd like this in a document format, let me know. And if you'd like this in email, you could put your email in the chat, but this will also be posted in the Polymath Place community on Facebook. So here are the dates. It's October 14th through 20th in Corfu, Greece. And there's the fee. The fee includes one group dinner, one group excursion. We're going to have some photos taken, some merch you'll get, and the fee for the facilitation of the retreat. And so the way this retreat works is you need to make your own, obviously, flight or travel transportation to get to and from the retreat, and book your own accommodations. A lot of the meals are going to be on your own to purchase, but we may be together for it. And then if you want to add on any optional tourist activities, here's the name of the place where we're going to be kind of centrally meeting. Just for the record, the White Beach Bar. It's a really beautiful beachfront location. This event provides a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to finally meet. And it's our first in-person meeting, which is really exciting. I consider it historic for that reason, because it's a gathering of the first like this, at least for our group. And by the way, in case you didn't know, the word polymath started in Greece. So it has significance for that reason. Why Greece? Well, that's where the concept of polymathy was first born. And it's an opportunity to meet finally. We've been this online community, or like we've all been text-based. We've all, we've had some Zooms like this. But this is an opportunity to really meet in person, which I think a lot of us are hungry for nowadays. And we would be coming from all over the world. It would be such a cool international experience. So it's an opportunity to network and engage in cool learning discussions, maybe meet potential collaborators or your next BFF, and to do it in person. Of course, there's going to be time to relax and explore and be tourists a bit too. And Corfu is absolutely gorgeous. So here are some pictures of what it looks like there. Very turquoisey waters and islandy. This is a little video I'll play. Give you some visual imagery of Corfu. Sorry, I thought there was music here. Maybe I'm not playing it. No, okay. Oh well, no music. But there are some visual images of Akaravi, and I'm gonna pause that now and keep going. And here are just what we have here are some suggested places with within like about a 10-minute walk of where we're going to be meeting. So these are the kinds of places you could book for yourself. And these are all live links that take you where you would book it. So basically you would just hopefully take one of our suggested accommodations or another that's nearby. So we just put this together to make it easier for you to make your accommodation reservations. There's some really nice facilities, and they're not, I mean, relative to some other places in Europe, it's like relatively affordable in Corfu. These are the prices for the whole stay. So I'm just going to keep scrolling through so as you can see, there's just a bunch of accommodation options here for you to consider. This one looks really nice. And then here are some things that can be done. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but you just get the idea that like there's a UNESCO listed old town with some of the most photogenic corners in the Greek islands in the old town. Here's this palace place that might be fun to go see. A day tour of Durrell. Okay, so there's fun stuff to do. And basically, if you'd like to come, if you're interested, there's a registration form. Let me click on, or actually, can you guys see the registration form? Yes,
Yes.
okay. Yeah, so
Yep.
you basically, this is how you sign up if you'd like to come. You just fill out this survey, and then we will email you the link, the information to make the payment. And so there it is. No pressure to come, but it is available. We've already got people signing up, and I haven't announced it formally in the group yet, but I'm going to do that later today. And I'm super excited. This is my first Polymath Place retreat, so I'm learning as I go. Forgive me if there are any imperfections as I do this. This is my first one. But yeah, we're doing it. Hey, Alina. All right. So
I'm coming on the retreat, so I'm looking forward to it.
yeah, Alina's been a part of organizing and planning this. And yeah, so if you're interested, be on the lookout for an announcement later today in the group that has the link. Or if you'd like, you could put your email in the chat. If you'd like, I can email you directly with the links that have the info. But that's my announcement that I wanted to share. So I'll open it up if there are any questions. Otherwise, we can, or if Alina, if you have anything to add, feel free. Otherwise, if we don't have any of that, we can just move on to the regular part of the salon. But I thank you for allowing me a few minutes to share about this exciting gathering we have.
I'm just really excited for it, and I have several people I know are coming, and it'll just be so nice to talk about polymathic topics, be able to present like just some of our own kind of polymathic pursuits and share, see if we can find collaborators. And I don't know, yeah, just be amongst people who are really, really voraciously curious will be very good for my mental health personally. We get that privilege so little, being physically around each other in such a beautiful place with like the turquoise water and everything. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love Greece too. I've traveled a lot, and Greece is one of my favorites I've ever been to.
Right.
So yeah, I'll be in Greece a couple weeks this summer beyond just this retreat because I love it there.
Nice. And did we bring up the exact dates and everything? Do people know?
Yes, yeah, sorry. We sorry, Lena. Yes, the dates were covered, and
Great.
like, so yes.
Yeah, so it's October 14th to 20th. And great. Okay, good. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Good to move on. Did we do intros yet?
We have not done intros. I just first thing, I just made that announcement so that it's done, and then I figured now we can just sort of go around the room and check in, and if you have questions on Corfu, feel free to ask. Otherwise, just feel free to dive into sharing really whatever you'd like to talk about. So far, I've let these salons be pretty free forming, see who shows up and see how conversations sort of organically emerge. So who would like to start?
We're just
Any
introducing
takers?
ourselves, right?
Yeah, we're just going around the room doing intros, check-ins,
Great.
anything anyone would like to discuss as it pertains to polymathy. So yeah, just introductions. Please don't be shy. This is super casual. Like, okay, this is casual.
Hmm.
Be comfortable, be yourself.
Yeah, I can start. Let's see. So my name is Alina. I'm out in Canada. I'm a psychotherapist and assistant professor at a medical school, and I have some passions in polymathy, obviously psychopathy and predatory studies. I want to open a department at a university that studies polymathy and sorry, that studies psychopathy and predatory studies. The words are too similar. My special. And I'm also interested in cults. I spent some time in cults over the years studying them, and currently also doing pottery. Thanks.
Nice. What a cool polymath combo. All right. Who'd like to go next?
I can jump in. Hey guys, my name is Michael. This is my first event with you guys. So I've been part of the Facebook group for a while, and I had a meeting cancel. So I was like, cool, I'll jump on. I've been like a life and business coach for high performing men for over a decade. So I kind of like invented and popularized the term men's coach. So a lot of my work has been like supporting men and being better, leaders, husbands, fathers. Like when I started my coaching business, like men was like a blue ocean market, like it's crazy. Like back in 2012, there really weren't that many people like serving men, right, in therapy and coaching. In my free time, I have this like pro bono part-time job where like, I just try and like understand what's happening in the world as deeply as possible down to first principle. So I've read like 450 books in the past 2 years, and I'm always talking to people smarter than me and just trying to, like really just like grok reality as
I love that.
as much as possible. I believe that like what's required of any leader now and into the future is just like truly just like such a deep synthesis of like everything that's valuable to being human, which just requires just like a lot of listening.
Mhm.
I've also been on the quote unquote spiritual journey. So a lot of like I used to teach yoga and silent meditation retreat, and I've been to Peru a couple times and sat with ayahuasca, and like psychedelic assisted therapy has been very helpful for me, and I'm an advocate of it, and I've seen it work wonders for a lot of people. I love to move. I teach dance. I teach ecstatic dance and Brazilian zouk, and yeah, I'm just I love what you said just around being very curious. I'm just like infinitely curious about life, and I think that um, I think something that we can do as a community is to like help people reconnect to that like sense of awe and wonder of just being alive, right? Like the inherent sense of awe and wonder of being alive. I feel like that's in this group, like probably like one of the many things that we can do to like kind of seed more life in life. So, and that's
Yeah,
me.
I love that. I love that. What a cool combination you are. It's so nice to meet you, like in video anyway.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes I just try to really tune into like, whoa, look at this living creature and their face that I'm looking at. Wow, we're alive. Like it,
Mhm.
sometimes I call it like that we're swimming in this cosmic soup. It's easy to forget. It's easy to get just like stuck in our day-to-day routine, but we really are part of like a really bizarre, magical experience. And it's good to remember that. Well, thank you for being here. It's so nice to meet you.
Cool. Thanks for hosting the space.
Yeah. All right. Anyone like to go next?
I'll go next. I think I've been on here many times, and I shared with you people about I was an engineer before I retired in 1999, and I lived in Washington D.C. area for about 6 months as a trainee. But I've gone through a lot of experience. I turned 82 this year, and I recently shared on a Polymath place how polymathy has really been my therapy and helping me deal with aging, loss of my wife of 50 years. So I'll just leave you with this real short poem that I wrote. I came up with the idea that I was an electrical engineer for power systems, but also I like trains. And so I wrote a poem about being an engineer of my overexcitable engine. I have an engine that drives me, full of energy and vitality. Even though I get older every year, my engine keeps going without fear. After my wife of 50 years was gone, my engine keeps going strong. In order to keep it from derailing, I had to engineer it from failing. My children got off at their station. This changed our relation. It is fueled by my emotion, guided by my mental devotion to reach my goals while in motion. I sense not to get off track, but imagine and think of the impact. Take on ideas and people every day. They can ride it if they go my way. Most of all, my new wife co pilots the engine of my new life. I thank God for my powerful engine. May He guide me as it's driven.
I love it. Well
So,
done.
yeah, thank you. I write a poem every day. I convert my dreams into a painting, and I lately I've been going to an art center near where I live in Sherwood, and I share my poems and paintings. And my new wife, Sabrina, she plays music while I. And so the thing right behind me is the latest painting I showed, and she played Ode to Joy while I was showing this painting, reading a poem. And so that's what I'm excited about, is connecting through the arts and science, and how and how that not only is exciting and gives me peace, but it makes me have a healthier brain and a healthier viewpoint on life, because I look for connections rather than corrections.
Hmm. You know what? I completely agree. That's why I called the Greece retreat Connect Ideas and People, because that's really what it's all about. Thank you so much, Bear. I love it when you're like the official poet of Polymath Place and the official painter. you, you bring the artistic expression when we really need it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Who would like to go next?
Okay, happy to go next. Yeah, my name is Eugen Oetring. I'm the first time here. Just saw the invitation coming along for this meeting. Met Angela twice by now. And my background is I'm a mathematician. I worked in an environment in the 80s and 90s where polymath skills, we didn't know about that word, were actually encouraged and supported. American company called EDS, Electronic Data Systems. The elders here might perhaps remember it. And then came the best practice, and the effective practices were not welcome anymore. I was one of the guys who rejected accepting that because they worked. And eventually I left and started initiatives on my own on bringing what had worked together, and took many years, but now things are coming together nicely, I think. We've created a global initiative with a few with experts by experience in the field, in particular, who have experienced how standard solutions failed, but also found highly effective solutions. We're bringing those together in a highly concentrated form right now. It's well advanced, and well, can share at some time more. But I would think I'll leave it with that short introduction. Don't think I've mentioned, as you might hear, I'm German. I live in the Netherlands, and yeah, flown around the globe a couple of times, and yeah, I'm looking forward to Greek meeting. I've just registered for it, so perhaps we'll see one or the other there.
Yes. Yeah, we're starting to get
Oh,
registration, so
awesome.
it's really exciting.
Yeah.
I did decide to, yeah, so I'm inviting like pretty much anyone in Polymath Place who'd like to come. And we're gonna have some like thought leaders in the space who are also in attendance, some content creators besides myself. So, and also it's a chance to meet each other when we've been interacting in the group for so long, some of us. This group has been around for 6 years. So, some of us have been there longer than other. Barry, you've been there a pretty long time.
Yeah, I was
You,
there. Yeah, I was driven to go there because I couldn't fit in with other groups. and so I would start doing what I'm doing, and eventually they would try to, box me in, and because I didn't fit in, and that's been the story of my life. And so so embracing polymathy has probably been, I mean, it's my natural thing to do, but my parents, and I always call it my 7 Ps, parents, pedagogues, preachers, partners, all tried to inhibit me from being a polymath.
Mm. Yeah, I love the group. Alina's commented too, like there are some groups out there that are like focused on genius. And I guess, Alina, what how would you compare like those kind of groups?
Yeah, oh, thanks. Yeah, you're right. Okay, yeah, so I was part of a lot of like, Mensa and different kinds of like groups that are more based on IQ. And I found it was hard because everyone was such a specialist, and it made it really hard for them to get along. And they couldn't see things from each other's perspectives. There was also a lot of racism, a lot of elitism, a lot of anti-women sentiment because white men tend to score the highest in IQ tests. So because it was designed by white men for white men. Anyway, so and then IQ tests were and IQ tests are just good at one kind of intelligence. We're still missing so many kinds of intelligence. So anyway, for me, starting to work with polymaths and being in these environments has been so much better. I found there's just such an openness to differences. Everyone's coming from so many different fields. A lot of us see very similar problems in the world and can look at them from more nuanced perspectives. There's not so much like gatekeeping of like, no, your IQ is not high enough, get out. It's kind of more like, oh, like, do you have cool output, like cool things you've done and things you want to share and things you're really curious about right now and like people you want to collaborate with. And for many polymaths, it's like, yeah, I'm working on 6 projects all at the same time. I'd love to talk to anyone who will listen about it. So I found it such a friendlier and nicer environment. Yeah.
Yeah, I really tried to make it a place where we can be comfortable and we can be authentic and we can have intelligent discussions and learn from each other. Like I really feel like we have intelligent discussions where we listen to each other and then we all collectively learn.
Mm.
So it's been cool. I'm so happy that I get to, do this kind of work and meet such cool people.
You know,
Ah,
what's really blows my mind away is the things that I do as a polymath are really healthy. They're healthy for aging. Like I sent that 8 different things I listed in Polymath Place recently that of how it makes you a super ager and all that. But I can't believe it. Everybody fights me from doing it. Everybody doesn't. We're all designed. We want to be into tribes. You want to fit in. And if you're different, they try to bully you and make fun of you and discourage you. And even polymath is looked upon sometimes as elitist. If you talk about being a polymath, that's why I like to say polymath pine mindset rather than, because they like to say, well, are you an expert in this? Are you expert in that? Well, it's really hard to be an expert in everything when you're doing everything. I'm always learning something new, and that's part of
True.
being a poly.
Yes.
yeah. Letting ourselves evolve through learning and discovery. And I think
Yeah.
it's through that you really find like what fits best for you, like if you don't sample and see what's out there. And then once you've had that sampling period, you can sort of figure out what you like and dig in and like develop some real strength in that area. But it exists on a spectrum, of course. Polymath exists on a spectrum. And the thing is, it's a way of expressing your onlyness and becoming a really unique expression.
Well,
So,
many of the terms from polymathy are Greek oriented, and so there is and I've been reading books about this called ekacharic. I hope I pronounced this correctly. It's Ekharic uh, writing, and it's where you maybe paint a picture and then the poetry matches the picture, and there's a Greek word for that. There's a Greek word for everything that you think it's original, but it was developed by Aristotle and Plato thousands of years ago, and that to me is kind of exciting. And I think it's what is it, the word is elegy, isn't the word where you have the one things I think about polymaths, they are motivated by what's inside them more than what's outside them.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to think of it. They're definitely self-directed in their learning. Like that's a key hallmark, is that you're not waiting for someone else to tell you all the things you have to learn as much as you are deciding what you want to learn. It's a way of reclaiming your own mental sovereignty and ownership of your own mind space by setting the own agenda for your own learning.
They're autodidacts is what they call them.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there's not much to critique with polymathy. Like we're going to need narrow specialists in the world, but I think for a lot of us, like that's kind of restrictive, and life is an exploration. Now that we're living longer and longer too, it's like, well, if we can live longer and longer, what do we do with our life? And I think it's about exploring the human experience and learning and growing and enjoying and learning. Just keep learning, keep growing.
Exactly. And even in my work with psychopath studies, some of the experts that I've interviewed, the ones that are more, like they're just, a neuroscientist really into their field, or, a lawyer into just the law of it. But the ones where I got the most information, I got the most like value and collaboration were from the polymathic experts. So for example, one guy was like a judge and a neuroscientist and had written, fiction books and whatever. And so then when we talked about this, even though we were talking about psychopathy, we were taking it from so many angles, and we saw so many of the same problems, and we're able to progress really quickly in our understanding. So versus the specialized specialists, I had to convince them like there's also these other things that are relevant or problems in research that you might not have encountered, and it's just a lot harder to get new ideas in versus polymaths. So like, oh, new idea sounds great. Let's like build that right now.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of polymaths have pretty quick minds, like their ability to learn is a bit quicker, and the output can be quicker. And it's like one of the Dr. Natasha Mott, she's in the group. She's not super active in the group, but she's in there. And I asked her one time, like from a neuroscientist perspective, like how would you think of polymathy? And it was interesting. She said, it's kind of like a productive, effective version of ADHD, where it's like funneled and channeled in such a way that like works for the person, as opposed to being like a disability or something. And Elena, what do you think of that? Like given your background with Alina, by the way, has like how many people are in your Facebook, the ADHD, what's it called?
Yeah.
ADHD.
ADHD Interrupted. It's one of
Yes.
my polymath branches is like kind of figuring out social media. So we got the biggest page on Facebook with 622,000 people.
Wow.
Which is really
Wow.
cool to get. It's really cool to get like a really quick view of like, what does the world think of stuff? You can put out a poll and you'll have like 500 answers immediately. So it's been really fun to figure that out. But yeah, sorry, what was the question?
So you've got you're expert in ADHD, and you have that huge page and everything. And I'm curious, like, do you think polymathy is kind of like a relative of ADHD?
Yeah, polymathy seems to be, it's like, it seems to be very connected to like ADHD plus output. So like ADHDers are interested in a bunch of stuff. Like I'd say every 3 weeks or a month, they're onto something, learning a lot, but but only some are able to then produce something like, I don't know, finish a degree or create a piece of art or publish a book or, create a model to get it out there or whatever. So I found like the output seems to be the differentiating factor. And also even the attitude that creates, because a lot of people who are more like ADHD are always like, oh my God, I can't get anything done. I feel so overwhelmed all the time. Versus I've noticed polymaths who often have a lot of overlap with ADHD feel more like, yep, I'm working towards some really cool projects. And these are like the ways I'm going to, get to the end of that eventually. And these are all the timelines. And I think the output is one of the differentiating factors. So so honestly, it could just be ADHD plus good nurturing or ADHD plus opportunity. I don't know entirely. What do you guys think?
Yeah, what do you guys think?
Well, I think it's what drives you. What drives me is the completion of something, bringing an idea to reality. Even though I'm working on many different things, I've been, I'm working on my memoir right now, and so I think that's if you have an internal drive to bring it to reality, even though you may have tendencies to be overexcitable. But I think the other thing is are you familiar with Grabowski's overexcitabilities? Because it's often
yeah,
I've
please,
talked to,
explain it. That's fascinating. I love that stuff.
well, it's easily confused with ADHD. See, the Grabowski is a psychologist from the 60s that came up with the theory of positive disintegration, and he said the overexcitabilities are one of the attributes that cause you to have what you call positive disintegration. That is, positive disintegration is what we're really talking about. It's giving away all the things you're told to do and become your authentic self. Okay, but the overexcitabilities are emotional, intellectual, sensual, psychomotor, moving around a lot, and imaginational. And I have all 5 of them. And I think these are characteristics of polymaths, because what I found is in society, they want you to focus on one, usually the intellectual part, and you suppress the other 4. But I found by treating them holistic, like a system, then I become a fully functioning person. But in order to do this, I need to write, I need to paint, I need to walk, I need to dance, I need to play music, because all these different aspects of myself, they require different aspects. And I'm a big believer in what they call expressive arts therapy. And I found that cognitive behavior therapy was inhibiting me. And I found that working with psychotherapists, they disliked all my activities and expression. They kind of made fun of it. But it was my solution to dealing with the problems of life. And that's what drives me right now, is getting people to be themselves. When they're born, they're polymaths. They're interested in a lot of different things. Their brains are bigger, actually, when you're born, 25% bigger. But I even got in trouble when I was working I made 3 presentations at the Supporting the Emotional Needs of the Gifted, or SING, and they had a neurobiologist, and I started talking about the brain, and she was mad at me because I was talking about her specialty. That's the problem, is we so specialize, and if you start learning about other things that are interesting to you, well, the specialists want to suppress you. They want to put you down. And there's a war. There's a war between the specialists and the people that are multi-talented. And there's a war between empaths and narcissists, I see in our society. I'm very much aware of this, and I'm an empath. I absorb other people's emotions, and that's another thing that drives me to be polymath, because it helps me kind of protect myself from other people.
Mhm.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I got kind of excited.
No, I love that. Yeah, and there's some comments in the chat. I want to be sensitive too as well. Oh, so did someone want to say something?
Yeah, I have a perspective on how I became a polymath.
Yeah, go for it.
And that's actually going back to 3 events in my life. What I can say is, when I do something that's in line with those 3 events, that gives the energy to go on and on. But those 3 events provided at the end of the day combination to do really deep analysis of where is a problem, how can you solve it, how can you find simple solutions, clear information, and the other one drove me to the international level. All things moving to system level, and if you want, can tell these 3 events. And all I can say, when those come together, that gives the energy. Otherwise, I couldn't do what I do. I think I had a mild version of dyslexia, but no autism, no ADHD, nothing. But these 3 events and the surroundings, being encouraged through my employer at the time, which was part of the company culture, to apply this thinking, that moved it forward and forward.
Would you like to share the 3 events? I'm
Yeah,
kind of
sure.
curious about it.
The first one was I moved from my first school, it was closed down after I was there for 6 months. School, and we were in the new school, and the teacher wanted to know how good we could read. Everybody could read except this person. And I must have given me, well, in a class, I was told, I must have given me a command that said, I don't want to be in any such situation again. And one of the consequences must have been, before I went into a meeting where I had to present something, I tried to answer all potential questions up front. And that means driving deeply into what could come, thinking from all sorts of different perspectives into it. The second one was around, was it 10, 12 years? I was in a class, my math teacher came in and said, "What are you doing there?" The implication was, I was in a class where the pupils who were poor in language, in German in particular, though I wasn't allowed to go to the English class. And what happened next is I learned in the next school, I learned English very quick, went to San Diego to have an English class and got into the international projects very quickly and moved country, of course. Also, that helped me to learn English. And the third one was my father had a winery, and you have these plants there, hundreds. You need to go through, do boring things by hand, taking days and days. In my head, I have quite often this thinking, how can I teach somebody else to take over? And into that are all things I do. I've got through this, I'm driven to make information available, concentrated, and get it to the level where people can apply it. So I got into communication function between the US and locations in Europe and designed a knowledge management system that enabled people to get the information out of their head into strategies, architectures, and so forth, but not today's style, a very simple and effective style, get it into the locations and the decision making again. Today, it's just throw it up on an intranet and, well, it gets lost. And here it's a complete cycle. And yeah, one of the things that drove me as well to go beyond the tipping point where things become executable. And so I got into different areas, first mathematics, IT, then my son had ADHD, dyslexia, both solved, no emotional outbursts anymore by applying the work I had done before. Turned out to be 2 laws of nature, to which we found an effective therapy that existed already. And that is no exception. But I couldn't find it in science. So Alinda, maybe we need to exchange some information here. And there's a lot possible organizational things. A lot goes back, organizational problems, health problems. A lot is solvable via 2 laws of nature, tipping point and capacity bottleneck laws. Even here, we have lots of capacity bottlenecks. But where is the result? We couldn't find it. Let's have a talk about it. Maybe we can get this going now.
Yeah, maybe you'll meet some people who want to do some research with you from the group, even. You never know. We have a lot of people who like doing research in Polymath Place. A lot of intellectual types like learning. I want to be sensitive, by the way. I know there are a couple people here who haven't come on camera, and I don't want to exclude anybody. So if there's anyone who wanted to do an introduction, you're welcome to do that. Oh, is there a hand? Somebody's got a hand raised. Oh, Craig. Yes, go ahead, Craig.
Well, so we're supposed to do introductions. So I'm Craig, and I'm here in Michigan. And this is my first time here. And it's pretty neat because it's like, oh, I don't know about your guys' perceptions yourself, but it was like, well, I didn't really do anything extraordinary, but people's reactions kind of lead me different. It's like, well, why are they always so damn happy to see me? in the last couple of years, I've just been the wandering watcher. It's silly, but it's like I had 10 fingers, so I had 10 things that I had to do because I'd reached the point in my life where, well, I don't have to do anything. Well, next thing you know, I really wasn't doing shit. But then, of course, spirits or whatever, it's like I had to do 10 things. I had to cleanse, calm, soothe, groom, and heal. I had to eat, drink, breathe, move, and sleep every day. So, it turned into the journey to the AM, IM. And basically, I don't know, my current interest is nature because it's like, man, I thought those 10 things would be so easy. Then it's like, okay, you got to learn how to eat properly, Craig. Well, that caused me to have to be the wanderer. I have to go for a walk in the morning and pick my food. Nature provides more than we can imagine. At first I was farming, and then I learned about foraging. I'm like, why am I doing all the work? Mother Nature's doing it for me.
I love foraging too. Very, very smart. Go on.
Where do you live?
Michigan.
In Michigan. Oh, you said that. That's right. In Michigan.
Yeah.
And where is it in Michigan?
I'm here in Pontiac in Oakland County.
Okay.
Wonderful place to be because I love water, so I'm surrounded with water. I don't have to. It's like about a 12-minute bike ride, and I'm at the river. Oh, I love swimming in the river. Well, I don't really do a lot of swimming. I just I tie myself off and let the tide just cleanse me. It's like, yeah, washed out, and then I spin around and wash out the other way, and let the sun shine on me. It's like, yeah, you're doing a lot of swimming, aren't you, Craig?
You're living your best life. There's all different. This is part of what I love about Polymath. There's all kinds of flavors and expressions of it. Like there are some like survivalist, like there's a survivalist kind of flavor where they have so many capabilities in the survival, like living off the land. It sounds like you've got a bit of that in you.
Those people I admire, and they're scary, because I'm part of the whatever. But they're ready for the apocalypse. Me,
So
if
true.
apocalypse comes, you can just go without me. I'm
Well,
not going to prepare for it.
I will say, like in uncertain times when shit can go down, like it's really smart to be multi-capable, and to be good at learning because it helps you survive. When
That was the amazing thing about COVID. Everybody was freaking out. I always had plenty of toilet paper in the damn cabinet. And then I could go for a walk for my food. I didn't give a damn if they shut down the stores. And I'd learned to make nature my pharmacy. I didn't need to go to that store. I didn't need to see those doctors. Everybody's like, well, how can you be so happy? I said, well, the world's pretty much outside of my control. I shouldn't put a whole lot of attention there. Not like I was going to stop it. I did what I needed to. I had asthma, so I got with my doctor, and I never wore a mask. I never got a shot. I got tested once because I had to go to my breathing doctor. But, I did what I had to do for me. It's like, well, no, I put on the mask, and then I forget the word, the doctor, I turn into like a flopping fish because I'm gasping for air.
Mm.
So I had an excuse to not wear that mask, and I had improved enough through the nature stuff that I really, I was cheating. I was already breathing good. I could have got along with the mask. And when I'd go places, if somebody was upset, I carried one because I didn't want to upset you. I mean, heaven forbid you think I'm going to kill you. And that's the reality. I mean, oh my God, I sneezed in the wrong direction. Poor guy, I just killed him. And they'd be looking at you like I'm probably going to die. That was a sad chapter, but it wasn't for me. Man, the world was so quiet. It was wonderful.
Wow, what an interesting take. Alina asked in the chat, what kinds of food do you forage?
Because
Great.
we have a similar climate. I'm just in Southern Ontario, so I'm like, oh, what are you foraging for? Like survival foraging. That sounds cool.
Most of the stuff is just greens. I could eat the bushes and the trees. Because like the first couple of years, you start off, oh, everybody's doing the mushroom thing. Well, okay, well, that's a little dangerous. And then it's like, if I'm gonna, if nature's gonna provide for me on a daily basis, then I'm gonna have to eat with the season. So like right now, there's lamb's quarters out there, the dandelions, the burdock, the plantains, You know, my berries have come and gone. You know, I get mulberries. Oh, pretty soon. Oh, it might already be time to be collecting the black walnuts. Oh, I love those.
Yes, it's time for black walnuts. I have 6 trees, so yeah.
I thought I saw one in the street the other day. I'm like, oh, it's time. And I figured out one thing. Don't put them in a regular garbage can and stick them in your garage, because those squirrels can figure out how to get into a regular can. I got to get a couple steel cans. I have nuts if you go to get a tool, you get a nut with that tool, or at least a shell.
Wow.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
That inspires me to do that more. Thank you.
Yeah, it's fun. Isn't it fun to meet all different like kinds of polymaths? Thank you for sharing.
You know, one thing about I learned that being in nature is there's an ecotherapy. You can and what one of the things that forces you to do in being nature, you look around, you smell things, you hear things, your senses become alive, and one of the therapies they talk about is moving your eyes, and being out in nature forces you to do that, and what he was talking about foraging for food, it forces you to be in a discovery mode, looking around, being conscious of your environment, and that's therapeutic. Not only the eating of the food, but the action of because we're designed to do that. We're born that way, and modern culture, modern society forces us to be what we're not designed to be. We become the technology that's supposed to help us, but we become what did Einstein say? We become slaves of the technology rather than technology is our slave. And that's happening. That's we got to be careful about AI. We can become slaves because it can be smarter than us, and we can become. And I think polymathy is one way of keeping us becoming slaves of technology.
Yeah, it's the antidote to being like to brainwashing and losing your ability to function independently. If we outsource too much of our thinking, well, you don't use it, you lose it. You know, we got to maintain the ability to like think critically and think for ourselves and keep learning and ask the right questions so that we can continue to be able to.
You know, it's silly, but I figured out, you know, it's like, okay, I like going outside. I always did. Somehow I just ended up near water, out in nature. I mean, the different businesses. I always said I didn't intend to go outside, but that's where I had to go, and that's where I belong. But the big thing that I realized, I'm like, oh my God, now I know why I love nature so much. It does not come with a to-do list.
Yeah, you're like,
There's nothing to hold on to while I'm out there floating in the river. While I'm out, it doesn't matter. Once I step outside, I tend to go barefoot though, because I understand the frequency of fabrics and in our earth connection and grounding and all that business. You know, it's like this was more important than I understood. Just taking a barefoot walk around my yard and gardens. I still ended up kind of going with things for the critters to, you know, because I bought the extra lot too. And so but see, I have real easy foraging too, because I have community gardens. I walk through my backyard and the other backyard, and I'm in another community garden 3 blocks down that way. So it's like my foraging's really easy. I can actually eat what you're eating too, that you're picking up at the grocery store. But I volunteer, so I'm free to come pick.
Nice.
So like, yeah, I get tired of eating my weeds out of my yard because I stick to pretty much mostly my yard, or there's no real reason. I looked at it went back. It's like, well, if I had to chop my own wood and carry my own water, how far would I be willing to travel? You know, so, and it's funny because my business motto, we did lawn sprinkler service. So my business motto was, if we can't get there in 30 minutes, we're not coming. You know? Road time was lost time. You know?
And I suppose you've had to like do some learning along the way too, to like with the mushrooms, for example, like being able to figure out which, you know, like there's a learning journey, I would presume, with.
Yeah, my current place where I'm like, oh man, this was so easy studying herbology and mycology, and And it's like, oh my God, Craig, you're going to have to start studying botany because now you got to get to the bottom of the Latin. Because, like he had mentioned about Grecian words, sure, we view them as words, but they're a sound. So when you step back, once we get to our language, we've lost the feeling of the sound. The word no longer has a feeling. It has a meaning, but it doesn't have a feeling. And you step back in time to the other languages, you heard a word, you didn't really need to know the language, you could feel the word.
Mm.
At least that's been my observation, because it's like I had to do my religious thing, so I had to go check out the Buddhist temple and the Hindu temple, and well, I started out a Baptist, so I had to try all the other branches of that, and but those, man, so many interesting things out there, and philosophers, and like you say, when I was younger, I kind of had the eidetic memory. So, and as I got older, I started panicking that I'd forget something. And then something happened these last few years. It was like energetic exchange, where literally I'd wake up in the morning and I wasn't too sure who I was. Sure as hell didn't know what I was supposed to do, but I'm like, I know where I'm at. Time to start over. And so I thought they were seizures, but there was never any seizures. So it was just an energetic exchange. My assumption was this: well, Craig, you wouldn't let it go, so they just knocked it the hell out of you. You didn't need it no more. You know, that whole theory of not knowing really works out good, and it's only meant to keep us curious. You know, just stay the curious child. That's why the journey back is. You know, it's like we find our gifts. No, they had a diagnosis. They gave me lots of diagnoses. The last one really got me: multiple personality disorder. I'm like,
Oh.
disorder. I said, I look at it as a gift. I can see 100 different aspects to that one little issue you're talking about, and you're stuck looking one direction. Says, I'm glad I can see from many points of view.
Yeah, that's one of the powers of being polymathic, is that you get to understand many perspectives and you become less blinded and less limited because of that.
So surprising, because well, I'm in the business community and the philanthropy, and you know, man, people get so stuck on the problem. It's like, no, there's one problem. There's 1,000 solutions. Make a choice.
It's so
Yeah.
interesting to listen to you, Craig. You've got interesting perspectives and interesting experiences.
Yeah, and I love how you explored all the different like religions, and I like, because I can relate. When I was like 21, I went on a trip to stay at a bunch of different like eco villages and communities all over Europe, and learn about just like all different cultures and religions. And then I made a deal that everyone I would meet, I would ask them if they've seen ghosts, because I was like, that's like, I'm also exploring, like, is there that kind of spirituality, or other? And it was so surprising across Europe, like probably 8% of everyone I asked, who was just like every kind of person from old to young and everything, they were all like, actually, there is this really weird story. And then they tell me this like really intense ghost story. And I was like, what? How is this the uniting thing of so much of the human experience? Anyway, so I didn't find God at all on that trip. So that was helpful to my journey, but I love the exploration.
Yeah.
I'd love to like riff on that, because I've had a lot of like what people would like label as like mystical or supernatural experiences, like in like a meditation retreat, like I watched my mind explode and become the universe, and like I felt infinity in my heart. I've had like a direct contact experience with like aliens, like extraterrestrials, like not on drugs or anything, just like I've had like a contact experience. And I kind of became known as someone who was like safe to talk to about that stuff, because I would like kind of share some stuff online. And I've had probably like hundreds of people just like pour into me, just like you were sharing, just all these different experiences about dead loved ones, or like maybe orbs, or seeing angels, or just having just things that are just kind of like a glitch in the matrix type things, or and most people, I I love to ask people this question on an airplane. If it's like, have you ever had like an experience? It's kind of like, mystical or supernatural. Like most people have, they just don't talk about it, dead loved ones, angels, aliens, and they're like, yeah, there's just one time when I was 13 and I was like driving through a cornfield and I saw a UFO and I think there's there's so many things that I think make up being fully human that we're afraid to share because we don't want to be seen as like crazy or even being like intelligent. Like I think a lot of intelligent kids are bullied in school for being smart and they're kind of like, so there's like kind of like that like kind of subtle trauma of like not trying to like shine too much or not trying to like, not trying to make like other people feel bad. And yeah, I'm just all about being like fully human and yeah, I also teach I co-facilitate like essentially like a sexual like mysticism school for like men. So like I have a teaching partner and I that help like married men and men in relationships have just like the best sex of their lives, like in a almost in like a whole other dimension of sex that most people don't even know is possible, that like I didn't know was possible until I was, like about 10 years ago and I went to some workshops, but like energetic orgasms and connecting to God and sex and having like real deep, like kind of like union, spiritual, mystical experiences. And yeah, there's just like there's so much more that is possible. Like I still believe even with, YouTube and podcast and the wonderful like connective nature of the internet where we can just jump on and share like knowledge and wisdom and stories. Like even with that, like I just like know like in my heart that we're just barely like scratching the surface of collective human potential. It's like we're just like limping along barely. And I think something that I'm really passionate about is it's just like giving people space to be human and not shaming them for like whatever makes them human and just like supporting that in them from childhood and not imposing our own beliefs onto them and not like essentially, I mean, this is like an intense term, but it's like a form of like spiritual or like intellectual rape, I think, like when we project these like ideas of reality and things onto kids instead of just like seeing them as like a completely whole and complete and perfect being and then just like stewarding them, right? Just like watering them. It's like watering a garden and just giving them like like the support and the obviously the like physical needs, but also the emotional needs for them to like live their life
Exactly.
in
Yeah.
in a way that's authentic to them. And yeah, I just believe like the more that we do that, then the more we have different examples of different beings who are all just like living their best life from a real like integrated, authentic place and not from like a performative trying to like get external validation or like get social media followers, but like a real genuine embodied like, oh, like there's nothing else I would rather be doing. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the word truth comes up for me. Well,
Mhm.
I actually have the word truth tattooed on my arm because it's so important to me. Because if we don't know what's true, then it's like, for me, that's like a kind of detachment from reality, which is kind of insanity. And it's so hard to even know what's true anymore. But part of how you figure out truth is we need to be able to talk honestly, like talk about aliens or weird experiences or the anomalies and the outliers, like all of that. Like I'm fascinated by that stuff. I have been for a very long time. Crop circles, all that. Um, and even like kids, like, yeah, truth. The truth is they're separate being. They're not like I have an 8-year-old daughter and I absolutely agree. My role as her mom is to be her steward through life and to help her become her full authentic self and the best it can be. That's her version of it. My role is to just help her discover that. So thank you for sharing that, Michael. A lot of wisdom there. Craig, I
Yeah.
see your hand up. Love to hear from you.
Yeah, you guys were talking about the spirit stuff, and I didn't know if you'd ever. It's like I go to the spiritualist temple, so it's like this hour and a half service. The first 45 minutes is an inspirational, could be any denomination. They're kind of Jesus focused, or were earlier, but they've embraced all. And then the second 45 minutes, the speakers up on stage give you messages. If they happen to notice you have an aunt or an uncle or whoever, they'll say, is it all right if I speak with you? And so it's literally, I mean, it's speaking with the spirits. So there they taught me how to do the mediumship thing. And yeah, that's all fine and good, but it turns out I'm more of a channel and an inspired writer. It's like, well, I give individual messages. I mean, if it's meant to be, it's not like I'm trying. It's just I get in your presence, I get in your energy. So therefore your answer arrives. And sometimes it's my job to give you the answer you were looking for.
Yeah, and I'm fascinated by energy. Can I tell
But
you,
that's
I've
a real practical way. Just look up Independent Spiritualist Association. But spiritualist, and there's daily shit going on. That's like I said, I was always the mental world, and then the last couple of years has been the spiritual embrace. Is like, well, okay, you want some sense of belonging or something, and well, I can belong to everything. I just didn't really want to stick with one group.
can I tell you guys the one weird experience I had? I haven't really shared much about it before, but it was like so fascinating. Like I look back and I'm like, well, that's fascinating. I don't know how to explain it, but um back in my late 20s, a friend of mine moved from California to Arlington, Virginia, to the building next to mine. And I offered, hey, do you need help unpacking? Is there anything I could do to, 'cause she had just moved into town. She was right across the street from me. And she said, yeah, I didn't get to sell everything I needed to sell before I moved. So if you want to come over, you could help me take pictures and post some ads. That would help me. So I went over there, and she had just gone through a divorce, and she wanted to sell the wedding gown, which had been preserved in plastic. Like that's a thing with wedding gowns. Afterwards, women will preserve the gowns to keep them from yellowing or moths or. So in order to take a picture of the gown to post the ad, she sliced open the plastic so we could hang it up. And I had this overwhelming feeling of funeral energy. And it was so strong. I know I was like, this is going to make me sound crazy, but it feels like a funeral in here. And she's like, oh my God, you feel that too? We both had this overwhelming funeral energy. And I was so confused. She opened the window and it sort of like dissipated. And I was like, what is it? Is it because her marriage died that I feel funeral energy? Like, I'm so confused. And then fast forward a few months later, I got engaged to be married. And she was like, oh, you should come over and I'll show you the photos from my wedding planning, like about the flowers and the catering. Like, I never planned a wedding before, and someone who has is offering to like teach me. I was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. So I went over, and she was going through the photo album of her wedding. And then I realized she was married in a church surrounded by a graveyard where funerals were. Yeah. And the energy got trapped in her dress and wrapped in plastic. And when the plastic was cut open, we both felt it. Have you ever been to a funeral and you feel the head? There's a distinct energetic signature of funeral energy, and it was trapped in that plastic bag and came out. Isn't that crazy? I mean, I don't know how else to explain it, but I think there are things beyond our understanding, and it helps to talk about it. Just be honest about it. That's how we advance our understanding of reality, is like taking into account the anomalies and the outliers and figuring out how to make sense of them. So that was my one weird experience I've had. I'd love to like have more. I've stayed at like haunted places and like hope to have an experience. Like I'm really open to that stuff. I'm super woo woo.
So
I'm from Berkeley.
Something that could help to trigger these experiences, because scientists have a cool direction of what might be happening. And I personally, I'm part of like a like witches coven. So like I, love the spirituality conceptual. I like the community and all that stuff and the cute, like the art of it and all that. It makes me happy. But I've always tried to, like with science, like how does the science connect to the spirituality? And I think fiction is really like, we all need our stories. I think that is very healthy for humans. Anyway, so science has a theory as to what might be happening. So if you stimulate your pineal gland, if you stimulate your pineal gland, there's a lot of activities that might do that. There's like meditation, certain sex stuff. It can just happen randomly. But they found that if they actually stimulated people's pineal gland on purpose, those people would all of a sudden start seeing ghosts and having spiritual experiences and even speaking in languages they can't speak, speaking in tongues, right? Like having like big experiences that were usually informed culturally by what was around them and stuff like that. And then they would find that also if one person's pineal gland was stimulated, other people's like would catch it. Like they would all start seeing things if the people were in high rapport with each other or something like that. So it's like there, and so religious people are like, see that the pineal gland is like the God antenna or like the spiritual antenna, like you turn it on and then look, we're tuned into other stuff. And then science is like, well, maybe we're tuned into our subconscious and all of a sudden we know things we picked up in patterns through our lives, but it's only coming from us. And sometimes we're passing it to each other in the agreeableness of humans. So anyway, I personally, I think about that every day. Like what might this be? What else might be there? Is it my subconscious or is it something out there? So.
Well, here's the thing, and I know, like we all have had professions and careers, and so like it's easy to try to like button up and fit into that like identity expectation, but the facts are clear. It's bizarre we're here. We're in a vast cosmic soup. We have bodies, we have consciousness. I started a Facebook page years ago just to capture, like it's called We Live in a Magical World. And I just capture like it's a lot of sea creatures. There are some bizarre earthly creatures that live underwater. So a lot of what's there just like bizarre underwater creatures, like earth aliens, basically. But yeah, I mean, if you really pay attention and you're open, like there are magical phenomenon just among us here on Earth. We live in a bizarre reality. So we've got to be open to bizarre explanations. It's bizarre we're here to begin with.
This what you're talking about kind of confirms one of my theories is one of my things I did when I was working for Bonneville Power was I was a power system engineer. And then when my wife died, I was trying to figure out a way to handle all the emotions that I was dealing with and grief. And I came up with this concept that we are all power systems. Whether you're a flower, whether you're a person, whether you're an animal, you're all power systems. You absorb energy, you use energy, and I think when you start thinking in those terms, I think that's where the polymathy comes from, because there's when you study power systems, they have power flow, and the laws of thermodynamics. You can't create energy, but you can transform it, or you can transfer it. You can't destroy it. And so in Tesla said, he said that once you see everything as vibrations and energy, then you begin to see things from a different perspective. And that's what I started doing. And I started treating my emotions like water behind a dam. And I started treating my nervous system like a transmission system. And I started treating my senses as meters. And I started treating my limbs as loads. And then my imagination was part of that. And so I took all these things and used the knowledge I had as a power engineer, and it made sense. There is books out there about us being antennae, that we give out information and we receive information, often through sound, and there are also things that we don't see. And I think that's the exciting thing, and I think that's what hopefully AI helps us become more knowledgeable of how we connect to the universe, rather than how we're separate from the universe. And I think that's where nature comes in. Nature is an ecosystem, it's a giant power system. And when we learn that our job is like you going barefoot, like Craig says, is a big part of it, because it helps connect us to the earth and connect to, and I do the same thing, and I found it makes me more stable, gives me more peace. And so when you start looking at nature around us as something to connect to, I think it's becomes beautiful. It becomes
Yeah.
beautiful rather than something that's threatening.
Yeah.
And so I think that's exciting. I really do. But we have a culture that wants to specialize. They want to put us in departments and silos, and so it's like there's this battle between these two different mindsets, but I think that's where I came up. I think that and I wrote a poem about that. I said, once I was a monomath, and I became an empath, and I produced the grapes of wrath. Then I became a polymath. Then I produced the grapes of, I don't know, the grapes of math. And so, anyway, it's actually monomathic thinking. My belief is eventually destroys ourselves. I'm finding out as I'm 82 that a lot of the people that I had conflicts with are dying. And here I'm living on because I'm connecting rather than correcting.
Yeah.
So there is actually, I think there is a health benefit and a longevity benefit to having that kind of mindset. That's my feelings. And
Well, I can confirm that 100% from the initiative we are working on right now. What I can say, it's called Law of Nature Manifesto, and what we discovered is there are hard laws of nature that, well, when we miss them, create a huge damage, exponential growth of all the bad things, and splitting humans from nature by focusing or by ignoring certain laws of nature in decision making, and this resulting to, people have become relaxed. Why should we worry about tipping points of nature, like climate and so forth, like health, when the tipping points are overruled in the day-to-day decision making, in organizations, in politics, you name it, simply because it cannot be expressed in an exact way. Yeah, so the laws of nature, and that was the big discovery, is the laws of nature are applied when they can be expressed in exact ways, mathematics, temperature, and the like. But as soon as the tipping point of complexity is crossed, that doesn't work anymore. I'm a mathematician by background, and we didn't do that in the past. We switched to other practices, but this switching has disappeared from decision making. It's now in the box, as you mentioned, decision making by numbers instead of numbers and patterns that tell us when big impact narrative impact is created, people recognize it. But on the other hand, it's pretty much the same laws of nature that tell us now how this can be solved. So my conclusion is in order to change, or the only solution the only solution left and powerful enough to solve the big problems we have now is the reintegration of laws of nature into decision making. That's especially those laws that cannot be expressed in exact ways. Exact works soon as it gets complex. And I'm sort of shocked because I've had discussions with many scientists in management fields, in social fields, you name it, brain research. Common reaction was, okay, here's the law of nature. It's relevant for your research. Or the other way around, when I ask, where are the laws of nature? Where's research with the laws of nature relevant to your field? The response I usually got is, what's the law of nature? And sorry, that's serious stuff. in fields like management, economy, health, laws of nature. So not disappear just because we cannot express them exact ways. They are there, but where's the research? Couldn't find it. And when we ask, can we get research started? Sorry, it doesn't fit my discipline. You name it. And then in organizations, okay, we can save this, we can reduce this bureaucracy dramatically by applying 2 laws of nature. Well, it gets kicked out right away because it doesn't fit in the procedures of the exact thinking.
Yep,
So
exactly.
huge of opportunity waiting to be unlocked. It's there, ready to be unlocked and ready to make the value happen.
Mm-hmm. I want to, yeah, I I completely agree. And also, it's easy to forget sometimes that like we're also part of nature. You know, we have bodies, and I really feel like part of how humanity has gotten sort of off track is because we've detached from our animal nature in some ways. Like our bodies have guts that can inform us and hearts that can inform us, and our physical instrument, our whole bodies can help inform us, not just our brains. And so just remembering like our full natural instrument, I think is really important.
Yeah, they say the mini brain is in the gut,
Yep.
and there's neurons in the gut,
Yep.
and it's called, and I think it and the heart itself gives off an electromagnetic field.
Yep.
And so I think we do realize that we do give off electromagnetic fields, and then we receive also electromagnetic fields, although they're very small and very tiny. That we I'm hopeful that maybe we'll begin to study these and learn how we can better fit in. But it's again the economy that we live in, that they form some kind of like fossil fuel industry or something like that, and they're all fighting to keep that industry going and not allowing for the application of renewable for to alleviate climate change. And it's I wrote an article about that. I wrote and greenhouse gases and everything. It's because of our one of the first things we want to do, we want to build, we want to cut down the trees, we want to get rid of. Then what they're finding out, this is interesting, that Phoenix, for instance, one of the hottest cities in the world, in about 10 or 20 years, it's going to be unlivable. But you know what the solution is? Plant trees. So they're planting trees in Phoenix, and because they give shade and they cool the air and they give off oxygen. So they have, it seems like we have to learn and through a catastrophe before we change. I mean, I'm talking about humanity. It's just amazing. You try to tell people, you need to preserve trees because they're our source of life and oxygen in the world. It's just
Yeah.
it's a constant battle. But I think ultimately, as I do all my paintings, I find that what I really get the most peace from is trying to connect to nature.
Yeah.
And really, it's not a trying. We are naturally connected to nature just
Mhm.
by being. We are part of the ecosystem, and we
Yeah.
are a ecosystem in of ourselves. And
Systems within systems within systems. That's the nature of reality.
and when I put this thing out to Chat GPT, how, and ask the question, how does being polymath mindset make you a super ager? One of the main things it said, holistic thinking. You think about exercise, you think about eating, you think about exercising your brain, and when you apply all these things together as a holistic way, you become healthier, you live longer, and you live happier.
I love it. I love it. Any other final comments before we begin to wrap up? Because I have another meeting in 8 minutes.
Yeah, it's the one, the little simple statement, we are what we eat, just sort of became kind of profound for me over. Imagine I put a banana in me. Well, then that banana turns into Craig. and what's no longer Craig comes out. It's just such a, we are what we eat. I remember that from being a kid, and I'm like, I'll be damned. And I am just an accumulation of what I've eaten and what I've taken in. And basically, you're seeing the pile, it just hasn't left yet.
I had this insight recently where, there are parts of nature that are violent. Like when we eat a banana, we kill it, we integrate it. Life consumes life. Like that's part of our reality too. Like life literally consumes life. We merge.
You have to eat love to stay alive. That's
Yeah.
just the reality.
We can't help it. It's not our fault. We got to eat.
But see, when you sit down to eat, you pay homage.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
whatever
you.
it may be, for giving me what you have or what you have left or whatever. It was kind of my journey. It's like, oh, a peaceful, grateful meal without distractions. It's just me and the food, and we're just becoming one.
You're like such a you're like Mr. Nature. I get that vibe from you. Like you're like connected to the earth and the cosmos. And I love it. I'm here for it.
We all are. We just
Speaking
have
of
to
laws of
realize.
nature. Yeah.
Gotta have 5 minutes for the 2 o'clock, I'd imagine.
Yeah. All right. Any other final comments, guys? This was such a fun conversation. I really enjoyed hanging out with you guys today.
Yeah, I've been, I put Daniel Schmachtenberger's work. He's a friend and probably like just like personal hero. I mean, if you haven't seen his work, it's
He's a genius. He's a sense maker.
he truly is. He is probably the smartest person I've met in person, but also like a heart of gold and just so loving and
Do you know
so
Jordan Hall?
yeah.
Oh, I know Jordan Hall
Yep,
too.
I've met Jordan briefly, but um
Cool.
but yeah, like I've been like really just I call it my like pro bono part-time job. Like no one pays me to do this, but like for probably hours a day, I've just been kind of like researching the space and I haven't figured out like how do we bind the negative externalities from bad actors in the system, right? So like I definitely agree with I went to like the law of nature manifesto and I'm like, yeah, like I'm on board with that. But then it's like how do we get everyone else on board with that? And yeah, and that like I don't know. I think um there's elements of like marketing and like using like narrative warfare and propaganda techniques that bad actors use, but like use it as like a force for good. So it's almost like brainwashing people for good in order to lead them to future results and outcomes that are good for them. I think there's an element of that, right? That's like a kind of a cultural, like telling like a new story of like what's possible. I think it's like just like living it, like being so happy and so alive that people are like, "What's up with you? What are you doing?" And like, "Oh, like here's what I do. Thanks for asking." But like there is definitely like this like policy piece, which I'm fairly I grew up in a cult. Like I grew up one of Jehovah's Witnesses, so I grew up in a politically neutral cult. So like my like this at some point when I'm not doing all the stuff that I'm doing, I'm gonna set aside like 2 months and just learn like as much I can about like policy and government and law because I'm pretty like undereducated in that space. But like yeah, it's just something that I've thought a lot about. Just like how do we like in the most like loving kind of like stewardship type way like how do we help steward behavior towards more pro-social behavior in a way that like inspires people to do it and gets them on board perhaps with some like more like grand narrative of Charles Eisenstein says like the more beautiful world that our hearts know is possible. So that's like a meme that has been shared a lot in some of the communities that we are adjacent to. um yeah, I
Yeah.
guess I just kind of came up with this with the solution to my problem just by just by saying it all out loud. And then right, and I've seen this happen in a lot of like spiritual communities and eco villages and like quote unquote like visionary polymath groups. Then it's like who's going to do it, right? Like who's going to take the accountability and the responsibility to like take that mission and then bring it into fruition. So um yeah, that's what I got. And it's Yeah, that's the edge of my exploration today.
Well, those are great questions. I swim in that space very much myself as well. Like that's what
Yeah.
Polymath is about. It's really about human potential and like how to empower people into their, to get closer to self-actualization and to
Mhm,
be all that they are in really authentic, full, vibrant ways.
mhm,
And also for me, part of my equation too is like, well, I realized some time ago, well, if you only focus on human potential, like that doesn't really fix the problems exactly. So I think like being really honest about what's not working in our world needs some storytelling and narrative as well. So for me, I focus on like the American criminal justice system because for me that's like a place of like a lot of suffering and it's a lot of harm. So I create some content in that area and then the polymathy stuff because I think that's how we make our world a better place. We fix problems, the power of intelligence and like good hearts together. We learn our way to a better world.
Yeah, I just want to share it like at times like in my heart, I notice this feeling of like overwhelm that I hit like I mean, almost daily of just like, oh my gosh, there's like so much work. But then I think just meeting something that has helped me so much is like meeting other folks like all of you at, different events or conferences or things like that. And then just like seeing people working on some of the problems that I'm tracking in the collective, but like they're maybe like 6 months in on a solution. It's like, okay, great. There's more of the load that's being taken by other people. So
Yeah.
uh, just enlightenment is like a team sport, right? So it's like everything it like
Yeah,
really, really takes all of us to to make the dream come true. So,
exactly. The collective consciousness together.
mhm.
Okay, guys. Well, Craig, were you wanting to say anything before we go? I thought I saw you wanting to.
No, I was just off in the grateful land. It's I just feel things that I can't explain. It's like, I'm sitting here bathed in light. And of course, that's easy because I've got a cathedral ceiling with skylights, but
I love that.
I can create it when the sun's gone.
All right, guys. Well, it's been such a pleasure to hang out today. I do need to run, but thank you so much for coming, and I hope to see you next time, next month.
Thank you for
All right.
creating this. Glad I
Thanks for
finally showed up.
thanks for hosting, Angela.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. You all have a good day. Bye-bye.